Well, it's just a sort of downward spiral, in Iowa. We're not used to seeing this kind of stuff. We're used to seeing every few decades maybe a CTEC scandal or something like that, and we claim that this is kind of an aberration. This is not the way things work in Iowa. So I think, the accumulation of let's call them issues that are on radio shows such as yours and on TV and on the front page of newspapers is unusual for Iowa. And as we're coming into an election year here, it certainly adds a lot of excitement to the question of whether Chet Culver is going to have a hard time getting reelected. Whether all of these things are going to drag down anyone. Is it going to be the Democrats, or is this just going to be blamed on mismanagement? So we've got a full table that's creaking with all kinds of things that people are really interested in, but also kind of upset and concerned about. The answer is yes. The answer is that people are going to say he should have been on top of this, that you can't have a state agency with one of the biggest economic incentive programs in the state, basically throwing a lot of money around without supervision. And, the thing that you have to come back to with each of these are three things that people are talking about in terms of the Culver administration, and those are management, leadership, and transparency. So this is about a lot more than just these flare-ups that are happening and these, disturbing kinds of things that are making headlines. It's a question about whether there are good management practices in place that have supervision and good, sufficient infrastructure to manage large programs and keep them running effectively. But the other thing is this issue of leadership. And I'll tell you that I have never heard so many people saying, why isn't the governor ahead of these things instead of basically pretty much playing catch-up? And the one thing that somebody said to me today is that you never want to have a situation like former Senator Edwards had, where you are, Senator Edwards from North Carolina had this scandal, and he sandbagged it, and it had to be dragged out of him like pulling teeth. It was the same thing with Bill Clinton. None of these things here have anything to do with sex here in Iowa, which is kind of typical of Iowa. We have a lot more financial issues than sex scandals. But you never want to be Edwardized. You never want to have the media be way ahead of you and then you play catch up and try to explain things. You want to Lettermanize it. David Letterman, when things were about to break about inappropriate or at least sexual relationships that he had, got ahead of it instead of having his adversaries in the media and others, get the story out. He was out with it ahead of time. And I think the point is that I have never seen the news media so, let me use the word, hostile to a governor. In 40 years that I've done political analysis, I've been at Iowa State University for 40 years, and I have never seen the news media so adversarial. And one reason is that when they try to get a meeting with the governor or a press conference with the governor, what they get is, his gatekeepers. They get, Phil Roeder or others, and not the governor himself. And that really, in 2009, is just not going to work. I mean, the governor has to come out he has to be out there, he has to be transparent, he has to be accessible, he has to throw some humor into this, he has to chill out and not I talked with somebody this afternoon about this, and they said, this is kind of like Richard Nixon, where you're the whole feeling is that you're holed up somewhere, you're not coming out and being open about it. It's like you're hiding something. And I think that probably makes all of this look a lot worse than it really is. And if I was advising the governor, I'd say, get out there and have many press conferences and meetings and meet with the media and be honest about it and tell them what you're really thinking. And don't try to spin it all so much, because these things you can't spin. And a lot of these things may not be the governor's fault. It may be that basically he wasn't getting information processed up through the system to him about it. But if you're the CEO of a company and you don't know what's going on down on the assembly line, in the end, the buck stops with you. And so, part of it is that problem, is that people were trying to get to the governor on the Iowa Film Office problems, and apparently they couldn't get through. This is going to be Senator Grassley's toughest reelection campaign, but it all depends on who the Democrats throw at him. If the Democrats cannot come up with a candidate that can compete with Senator Grassley, can take him on, has the financing, has the visibility, then he's going to get reelected because he's the incumbent. But this is definitely not good news for the senator. It's pretty low for somebody like Senator Grassley, who ought to have much higher approval rating. There is one person in Iowa who would probably blow away Senator Grassley if the Democrats could get him to run. Bob Ray. Robert Ray has been everything in the state. He could become a Democratic Congress for the Senate, and Senator Grassley would be toast. But I don't think Bob Ray is going to do it. So at this point, I'm not sure that the people that the Democrats have been, talking about have, the kind of credibility, muscle, visibility, and so on to do it. And Roxanne Conlon is a very smart person, and so is Christy Vilsack. But Conlon is getting along in age, and she did run for governor and didn't do very well. I'm sure she has a pretty good job, and it's just hard to tell who could defeat Grassley. And I'll tell you, I'm always betting on the incumbent. Even when Grassley's poll numbers are this low, incumbency is just so powerful. If he can pull off coming out with a decent healthcare reform bill in Congress that doesn't scare too many people, all these numbers are going to turn around. And instead of blaming him for working with the Democrats and all this, people are going to say, Senator Grassley was one of the people who made it possible for us to have a healthcare reform bill, even if it isn't the perfect one. And I think those numbers will change. But it's definitely, this is a dicey year. Everybody's cranky. The economy is tanking. Unemployment is going up, and people are mad and worried. And so even for somebody like Senator Grassley, it's a tough year. And I think Governor Culver's numbers are actually still pretty good, considering all of the stuff that's been thrown at him.